Strap yourself in and get ready, for it's time for Raywa Gaming Matt's recap of the Xbox Games Showcase. Hello everyone, Matt here, and it's time for my recap of the big Xbox Games Showcase that happened a couple of days ago. Sorry this video took a little longer to post, unfortunately. I made this video yesterday. It was a nice long 36-minute big and comprehensive review of the entire show, and as just I finished recording it, my computer completely crashed and I lost everything. So I stepped back, decided to think about it a little longer, and actually do a much shorter recap of the big Microsoft Xbox show. Now, as we all know, this was supposed to be the big unveiling, the big coming out party for the Xbox Series X and the future of Xbox. We already got in a video a couple of weeks ago, or like a month and a half ago, showcasing some of the third-party titles coming, but this was about Xbox games themselves from the Xbox Game Studios. And this was supposed to be the event that would showcase A, why we should buy an Xbox Series X, B, why should we give Xbox a chance. And as I said in my preview video, this was an important event for me because they had to sell me on an Xbox Series X. I was very, very let down by Microsoft the past 10 years, as I said before. I used to be a huge fan of theirs. I loved the original Xbox, one of my all-time favorite consoles, one of the best consoles ever made. It was very original with a lot of great variety of games from both America and Japan. Games like Steel Battalion, which was an amazing mech game with the most incredible controller ever. Games like Jet Set Radio Future. Games like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Fantastic games all around. What was it? Crimson Skies, one of my favorite games of all time. Great World War II, or pre-World War II-esque, like Pulp Fiction-ness, tailspin type game. It was really, really cool. But unfortunately, halfway through the Xbox 360 era, they started changing ground, going towards Kinect, going towards more family games, going towards more, this whole, we want to get everyone to buy a set-top box. They kind of changed their marketing, their ideals to be less about the hardcore gamer and more about everyone. Meanwhile, Sony, being in the position it was actually putting more focus on gamers, and they had brought back a lot of great things that made PlayStation special, and so I ended up going back to PlayStation at the halfway point. And when Xbox One came out, with all the controversies about the DRM, always online, not being able to play used games, at least that was the original plan, they completely lost me. And also, more importantly, they just didn't have the games that would get me to come back. So I never bought an Xbox One. And I don't regret that. It's been one of those decisions that I'm very, very happy I did not do. But I still like the Xbox brand in general. And I was hopeful that this show would show me the Xbox Series X as an important must-have purchase. Now, to remind everyone of what I said in that video, I said a couple of things. I said, number one, Phil Spencer needed to come to the show. He needed to basically shut up, aka not talk too much, not say some things he's going to go back on, and he must put up. Did he do that? He definitely showed up and talked a little, and I don't think he put up so much. We'll come back to that in a minute. They must show why Series X is a must purchase. We're going to come back to that as well. It's going to be a hard one to say. Large amounts of quality games with large amounts of variety from first-party studios. I think we did see that, but was it the right type of variety? Was it the right type of games? We'll talk about that in a moment. Go back to their past and bring back old franchises. A little, which we'll get into that. Surprises. We definitely had some surprises, but it was mostly in the pre-show, not during the main show. And the last one, which I knew was not going to happen, but I still put in there, price and launch date. They said this was all about the games. They didn't talk about that. So what did they talk about? Well, before that, they had a pre-game show, I guess. So Jeff Keighley had a pre-game show for his Summer Game Fest. I have to say, unfortunately, this was the first time I've watched one of his streams this summer. It was a terrible stream. It was like really chugging and not working. I had to restart it many times. Obviously, a lot of people were watching the show, so that was probably what was the problem. There were a lot of games they showed during that event, that pre-show, that I just didn't care about. Echo Mecha, didn't care about that at all. Watch Dogs Legions, didn't care about it. Echo Generation looked okay, but not a really big deal. Hello Neighbor 2, I'm not big into those YouTube popular games, that kids love, like the horror type games. I like horror games, but not those silly little games, so I didn't care for that. But the three things they showed that were interesting, unfortunately, I have to say I'm more interested in it not because they're on Xbox, but for another reason. The first one they announced was the very first game they showed was Dragon Quest XI S. So finally, after a long, long wait, Dragon Quest is coming to the Xbox. Of course, it's been on the PlayStation, it's been on Nintendo Switch, it was even on Nintendo 3DS. The most popular RPG franchise in Japanese history is now going to be available on all systems, and that's a great thing. It's great for Xbox gamers to be able to experience it. More importantly, we're getting the S version on the Xbox, which is the version that came on the Switch. That is a enhanced version of the game with more content, orchestra soundtracks, voiceovers, and for both languages. Japanese and English, and so on. Unfortunately for Microsoft, while this was great news, and by the way, it's coming to Game Pass, which was a big deal, I would say, for the Game Pass service and for Xbox gamers who have Game Pass. That's a great bargain to be able to get Dragon Quest on that. Unfortunately, it's also coming out on the PlayStation 4. It was announced shortly after that, yes, it was going to be coming to the PlayStation 4, just like it was on the Switch. Unfortunately, if you bought it on PlayStation 4, the original version, you can't upgrade. You have to buy a new version of the game, which kind of sucks considering I've already bought the PlayStation 4 version twice, both in Japanese and English. But I also have the S version on the Switch, so don't know if I'm going to get the PS4 version because I hear it's going to be the same graphics as the Switch version, but who knows. So for me, like, yeah, this is a big pickup and it's great, it's on Game Pass, but it's not something that makes me go, oh, I got to go to an Xbox. It's a 3-year-old game. It's a great 3-year-old game. It's one of the best RPGs ever, definitely of this generation, the best RPG from Japan, and it's a must-play. So good for Xbox fans, but for people like myself in Japan who play games and have been playing games for years, it's not a pickup that makes me want to buy it. The same thing goes for the other big Japanese title announced during the pre-show, which was Balan Wonderworld. It's a new action game for action games, as they said. It's from the co-creators of Sonic. Yuji Naka is back. He has, of course, joined Square Enix, and he's working with Naoto Oshima, the other co-creator of Sonic. They worked together on Nights into Dreams, I should say. Not Dreams. Dreams is that Sony game. Nights into Dreams. So it's kind of a great combination to bring back these two great creators to work on a new action game. And it was shown first on the Xbox show, again, Game Pass and all that. I believe it said Game Pass. And it looks interesting, looks really great. But right after the entire Xbox show, it was announced, hey, it's coming to everything. It's coming to PS4, it's coming to PS5, it's coming to Switch, it's coming to PC. So I'm like, there's no reason to buy an Xbox for this. I could buy it on the PlayStation 5. I could buy it on my Switch. So their pre-show, they had all these games. Also, they had an ID at Xbox showcase, like indie games. They had a lot of interesting looking things. Nothing you can really say that I can really pick out from the video that really stuck out specifically. But they all said these were like console launch exclusives, so they come to Xbox first. Well, if they come to Xbox first, they're coming to PlayStation 5. So that didn't get me into it. So basically, everything they announced on the pre-show that interested me was mostly the Japanese games, which I expected and what I wanted to see. But they're also coming to other systems. So there's no reason for me to buy an Xbox based on that. So pre-show was very disappointing. Not to mention that all the panelists they got, mostly, pretty much everyone's a YouTuber. They just wanted to talk about Halo. It was all Halo, 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 Halo. Look, I like Halo, but as I said before, you need to talk about more than just Halo. And I know that this show was going to be the big unveiling of Halo, but if that's all you care about, why are you watching this? Well, thankfully, when the main show started, they did show Halo first. They showed it off, and it looked like Halo, but it didn't really impress. A lot of people were very disappointed with the look of it. It didn't really look that much improved on the current generation. Obviously, there's some good graphics there. I mean, really nice draw distance, big worlds. It's an open world game. But especially after the show, they showed off some pictures from I think the 343 Studios decided to release some screenshots. Didn't look really good at all. In fact, there's one screenshot that's getting memed all over the internet. And for me, the same thing. I said to myself, like, is this a game that would make me buy an Xbox? Absolutely not. Just not interested in that at all. And that's sad because Halo should be a great franchise. I did like the villain. I haven't played a Halo game since 3, and the villain looked really interesting, kind of like a Thanos-like character, I guess. I'm probably completely wrong on that. But other than that, it didn't really interest me, and that was disappointing because that was supposed to be the big announcement of the show that we were waiting for. Then they showed some games off, like for instance, State of Decay 3. It was a very annoying trailer. I did not like it at all, and it was just CGI. And that was something that you were going to see a lot of in this show. There's going to be a lot of CG trailers, lots of CG trailers, and no gameplay. And I was like, what's going on here? Then they show Forza. And I'm not a big fan of Forza. I'm a big fan of Gran Turismo series. Like Gran Turismo 3 was one of my favorites. The Gran Turismo Sports, fantastic game. They showed the first shots of Forza, the first video, and it does look very detailed. It looks really nice, but it was like 30 frames a second, and there was no gameplay. And apparently afterwards they said it's really early in development. Completely not interested. I know that I'm very biased on that, but I just think Gran Turismo is much better. I've always felt Gran Turismo much better. I've always felt Forza was just so annoying at times. So again, another game that disappointed me. The fourth game they showed was probably the first game on the main show that actually interested me, but I still have no idea what it's about. And apparently the company that's making it still doesn't know what to do with it. They don't even have any real gameplay of it. It was another CG trailer for a game called Everwild from Rare. And as best as I can tell, it looks like a magic world, like a world filled with magic. And that's it. There was no gameplay. There was no idea what this game was about. They had like one of the people from Rare talking about how there's like this big community for the game, and I'm like, there's a community for a game? We don't even know what the game is. I was kind of surprised by that. I really was left stunned by two things. One, it looked great, but I couldn't grasp what it was about. So again, until they show me something that tells me what this game is, it's nothing but a trailer, a CGI trailer. So again, another disappointing thing there. Then they showed what looked to be like a Life is Strange type of game. A lot of people are saying that. Something called Tell Me Why. Could be okay, but it just didn't look interesting. Something about a mother attacking her children and the kids growing up trying to find out why. I don't know. I've learned with Life is Strange that it never really got to me. Like those type of games rarely get to me. So I'm not sure about this one yet. I do like detective-like games, learning mysteries and things like that. So maybe it's cool. But my first impressions were, I don't know. Maybe this is not for me. Then they talked about Ori and the Will of the Wisp for Series X, when they talked about the improvements it's going to have on Series X with a patch. They'll bring it up to 120 frames per second plus other improvements, which I thought was pretty cool. I think that's something that's great about this next generation. Smart delivery is something Xbox is going to really be pushing, and hopefully PlayStation 5 pushes more of that stuff with their PlayStation 4 titles. So I thought that was great news. Then we get perhaps the best part of this entire not press conference, but showing, and that was Obsidian. Talking about Obsidian, they talked about 3 games. By the way, if you hear that noise, that's the outside bells here in Japan for the end of the day. The first game they talked about was the Outer Wilds, the DLC, the extension of the services, the extension of the story, and it was more Outer Wilds. That's cool. But again, this is coming to PS4. So I was like, I don't care. This doesn't help me buy an Xbox Series X or an Xbox One. So again, something I might be interested in, coming to PS5. Another loss there for Xbox. But they showed then 2 games that looked really interesting. One was called Grounded, which looked like an adventure game where you play as kids who are shrunk down to the size of like insects, like was it Honey I Shrunk the Kids? That's another thing people were saying online. It looked like that type of story, that type of gameplay. You're fighting against insects, even going inside ant hills, building up buildings. And apparently this game comes out next week in early access. I thought it looked pretty cool. And actually it made me wish I could play it right now. So that was really the first Xbox exclusive. I went, I want to play that game. That looks fun. Then they showed another trailer for something called Avowed, which was a new RPG that they're working on. Again, it's a CGI trailer. Obsidian is known for their RPGs. They're known for the games that they made in that genre. So a new RPG from Obsidian is going to be something really, really cool to see. So that was something I'm like, yeah, I'm looking forward to that, absolutely. Next, they showed something called As Dusk Falls, and again, another interactive drama. I couldn't tell what it was about. I mean, it was like it's something about family going to live in the West in America. Some other group of people look like they're in trouble with the law. It was a lot of paintings. Was it gameplay? Was it just a trailer? I don't know. It didn't look interesting at all. It was another interactive drama. I was like, nah, I don't want to play this. So disappointed in that. They showed more Hellblade 2, which looks really, really cool. Again, this is a game that I'm definitely jealous of Xbox fans that are going to get to play because it's exclusive to their system. Because Microsoft bought the studio. I loved how the people behind the game were talking about they can't wait for gamers who love the original to be able to play the next one. And I'm like, well, what about PlayStation and Nintendo fans? They're not going to be able to play it if they don't buy an Xbox. But that's a great win for Microsoft, and it looks great. Hopefully that's in game. Hopefully that's real gameplay footage that they've shown so far. It looks really, really good, and I'm definitely interested in that game as well. Next, they showed some Psychonauts 2 from Double Fine. Never played the original. I'm not a big fan of what I saw of that game, so I'm not really that into wanting to play it. Although the Jack Black music was really cool to see. I'm glad that got into the game. So hopefully we'll see more of that in the future. So that looks really, really, really interesting. But other than that, I don't see myself playing that game. And even if it was, it's coming to the other systems. So again, another game on Xbox, not interesting. See this pattern? This pattern of games that are coming to Xbox, they're not interesting. That's how I kept feeling. Every game they announced, it was just like that. The next thing they announced was Destiny 2 for Series X. I'm like, who cares? Who cares? I know a lot of people care, but I don't. Destiny is a series that's really disappointed me, and I'm sitting there like, I came here to watch something to learn about new games, and you're talking about Destiny 2 coming to Game Pass. Yeah, it's great if you like Game Pass, but like, who cares? Like, that's not a new game. So please, where are these games? Where are these good games? And then came something that I'm going to talk about in a minute that was really confusing. They started to say that, oh, we have a list of console launch exclusives. And they made it sound like these games were coming to Xbox first and PlayStation or other systems later. And after the show, there was a lot of confusion if that's what they meant, or they meant that it's actually launching exclusively as an Xbox only title. And they talked to many of the studios, like Kotaku did an article where they talked to studios, and they got mixed messages from each one of them. And based on what I've got, I'm going to say what I saw there, and how I felt. Stalker 2, never played the original Stalker. I know there's a lot of fans of it, so if you like that, that's great. Chernobyl, interesting, but I'm not interested in playing the next one. I never played the first one. Warhammer 40k Darktide. I love Warhammer 40k, so that's a game I'm interested in. And when they talked to developers, Kotaku, in their article about the mixed messaging, they said that they were only talking about Xbox Series X and PC. They weren't talking about other systems right now, which kind of sounds like, yeah, it's coming to other systems. So I'm like, yeah, that's definitely something that I would be interested in if it comes to PS5. Next, they showed Tetris Effect Connected. Fantastic. More Tetris Effect from Enhanced, the studio that made the Res VR game and the Tetris Effect game, from the creator of Lumines, and Res is part of that company, and it's coming exclusive launch on Xbox, but next summer it's going to be a free download for everyone who owns the game on the other systems. I own the game on the PS4, and I'm going to be playing that one in VR for free. So again, another Xbox game I don't need to worry about. They showed a game called The Gunk, which did not look interesting at all. It was just like a action game, some sort of action adventure game where you have to clean up gunk. I just didn't like it all. Didn't like the art style or anything. And that one was confirmed to be not say Microsoft. It was confirmed to be it's an Xbox exclusive. They said afterwards, yeah, this is not coming on other systems. So it didn't interest me. The next game, though, this was probably the first game of all the games they showed with gameplay, which seems to be gameplay, that looked next generation. It was The Medium, a psychological horror game where apparently you can be in two different realms, like the real world and some psychological horror world. And it looked really, really good. Looked really creepy, kind of scary, of course. And again, the Kotaku, who was doing articles on the questioning of the messaging, they asked, is it coming to PlayStation 5? And they said, well, the same thing as Warhammer people said. We're only talking about these versions. So it sounds like it's coming to other systems. So I'll wait. So again, another could have been great game to buy for the Xbox Series X. Goes to PS5, not buy on the PS5. Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis, a new version of Phantasy Star Online 2 that's going to be new graphics, new systems, going to be a service alongside Phantasy Star Online 2. Very popular game, of course. Just came out in English in the West. It's going to be an Xbox launch exclusive in the West, mostly because Microsoft has been the one that's responsible for bringing the game to the West with Sega. But already we now know that this game is definitely coming out on the PlayStation in Japan, and also the Nintendo Switch as a cloud version, just like the original Phantasy Star Online 2. So for me, it's like, yeah, no brainer. I'm going to be playing this game on the PlayStation if I want to. I don't need to even wait for an American PlayStation release. I can just play it on the PlayStation 5 in Japan or PlayStation 4. I can't remember if it's coming to both, but most likely it's coming to both. Then they showed two last games. One was called Crossfire X, just looked like a general first-person shooter. Didn't interest me at all, so yeah. And lastly, they showed the one thing that we all knew was going to come. It was the one franchise from the past they brought back, and it was Fable. And they showed a short CGI trailer. And yeah, that's it. And it's great. Fable's coming out, but we saw no gameplay. We saw no idea what the game's going to look like. No idea other than it's going to be typically funny Fable. Glad it's back, but not much shown. So that was it. That was the entire show. They promised that there would be more things shown later in the year. Obviously, they still don't have a release date or price. And the entire show was really confusing to me. The entire show was confusing because they had done a show many weeks ago where they were going to talk about gameplay. They screwed that up by not showing gameplay, and they said they were going to fix things and make things better for the next show. Well, the next show was mostly CGI trailers again, almost no gameplay, which was really disappointing. The times we saw gameplay, a lot of it didn't look really good. In fact, we now know since this recording, since that recording was shown, Halo Infinite was being played on a PC, not on the Xbox Series X. And it looks terrible on a PC. So how am I supposed to believe it's going to look better on the Xbox Series X? I really don't know. It really disappointed me to see that. Other game there didn't look so much better that made me go, oh, this very powerful system is going to really make me happy. Instead, I really got a bunch of games that either A, are going to be available on the PlayStation 5 as well, that I can just play on there, which is a system that we know is going to have an incredibly amount of great games already announced for. Games like Spider-Man and Horizon. Those games that we saw at the showcase, the Ratchet and Clanks. And those games looked amazing. And nothing on this show came close to the announcements that were announced on the PlayStation Experience. Even the games that were announced on PlayStation Experience that are multi-platform, those were more exciting, and those looked like something that I would want to buy a PlayStation 5 for. And even worse, we had this mixed messaging where only a few weeks ago, Phil Spencer was saying that all the games are going to be on the Xbox Series X, are going to be on the Xbox One the next couple of years. Well, a lot of these games, apparently, their trailers only said Xbox Series X and PC. And there's been a lot of confusing Twitter posts from people from Xbox saying, well, we're going to try to get many of these games on Xbox One. So they're already kind of backtracking on it. They're already saying, oh, maybe not all these games are going to be on Xbox One. And I find that really odd that they would have this promise and then go back from it. The one thing, though, that they really were pushing, and it's obvious they're pushing, was Game Pass. And it's no secret why. Game Pass is their big tool into the next-gen market, into this market right now. They think and feel that this service is the most important thing they have. And honestly, it really is the most important thing they have. Game Pass has been a big sell for everyone because of the fact that for $15, you get a nice variety of great games you can download and play. Not free because you have to pay the service fee, but play, anytime you want. as long as it's on the service. And Microsoft, of course, made the big decision to make those games from Microsoft available on Games Pass always. So if it's a Microsoft made game, it's going to be on Game Pass. And they also said that every game on the show last night was going to be on Game Pass. And I know that there's been some people the last couple hours that have been talking about on YouTube that, oh, that's the big thing from the show. Why aren't more people talking about it? Why aren't more people excited that Game Pass is the big deal? Well, there are many reasons why I'm not that excited about Game Pass myself. Number one, I already have Game Pass. It's called PlayStation Now. It's been available on PlayStation for years, and it's good. I know a lot of people say it's not as good as PlayStation Now, and there are some, unfortunately, less titles in terms of quality, I think, on PlayStation Now, but there's no lack of good games. There's a lot of good games on there. But one of the big things that people complain about is, oh, Sony doesn't put their games on there. Well, why doesn't Sony put their games on there often? Well, they do now, of course. They do put like 1 or 2 old games for every couple of months on there for a short time. The reason is that they don't have to. Their games are popular. People want to buy them. Ghost of Tsushima has just sold like 2.5 million copies. It's the biggest selling first new IP this generation for a PlayStation first party title situation. It just became the number one selling PlayStation 4 first party title in Japan the whole generation. It outlasted us too, which is amazing. These games sell, and they sell the first 2 weeks, the first 3 weeks, the first 4 weeks. So then Sony's always getting the money in. But Microsoft's first-party games have not been doing well. They've been really not doing as well as other companies. So Microsoft knows that they have to kind of give away their games. And so that's why Game Pass is so good, is because they have to make it good to get people to come back to Xbox. And there is a question of sustainability. There is a question of, will this service last long? I'm not convinced it will. I'm actually convinced it's going to actually eventually be much more expensive, or it might even be less titles. Especially if Microsoft were to take the lead again. We've seen with Sony, once they took the lead, once they got better, PlayStation Plus started to go a little down in the quality. Used to get 6 games for free, now you get 2 or 3. So, there you go. So for me, the thing I wasn't that really impressed was, is like, okay, yeah, all these games are on Game Pass. Almost none of them I want to play. And the few I want to play, I'd rather play on PlayStation 5. So, it doesn't matter that Game Pass exists. I really don't want to play most of these games. I just don't care. You know, if you're someone who's like, oh, I gotta have so many games, I don't have much money, that's great, go get Game Pass. But when so many of the games they showed at this show were disappointing and just not interesting, it doesn't matter if they're on Game Pass or not. It just makes me less interested in Xbox. And so that was my takeaway. In my opinion, the lack of actual good messaging and the lack of really interesting games, and still months to go, the lack of any real gameplay from a lot of these games. We still don't know what's coming out this year. We don't know when the system's coming out. We don't know how much it's going to cost. We don't know really if any of these games are going to look and play as great as they claim they will. They're now talking about how the Xbox is the most powerful system out there, but we haven't seen it. We really haven't seen it. We've seen what looks like a great game, but honestly, I take Halo Infinite and I put it next to those PlayStation 5 titles we saw. PlayStation 5 looked a lot better. I really felt that way. And, I don't want to sound like a fanboy, but, Microsoft's job is to sell me their system and to get me to come back to be an Xbox fan. And I'm sorry, but they failed. They completely failed. And that makes me sad as a former Xbox fan, because I think they could have done a better job. So overall, I think if you were an Xbox fan, if you were someone who was already converted to the Xbox service, you probably saw this show and maybe in a little bit of different light. You probably said, wow, these are all great games. They're coming to Game Pass. That's fantastic. But if you're like me, someone particularly who lives in Japan or likes Japanese games, who has felt burned by Microsoft over the 360, especially the way they treated people in Japan with the lack of exclusives, and the ones that were exclusive ended up going to other systems eventually with more content, the way that the Xbox One was treated here and around the world. They had a big thing they had to do. They had to absolutely 100% pull it off this show, and they couldn't. So Absolutely disappointing. So for me, I have to give it a C minus. They had some good games, but not a lot. Yes. Well, that's it. It ended up being a lot longer than I thought. I thought it'd be like a 20-minute video, but it's probably over 30 minutes now. And as I can hear in the background, sounds like my kids are having fun here. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to do another video in a couple hours or a couple of days, depending on if I have time, on the news of this week from Japan. Of course, there's a lot of news in the Xbox show we talked about from Japan. There's some other great news. But yeah, if you were asking me right now, am I going to buy an Xbox Series X? There's no way. Absolutely no way. And I think that, unfortunately, one of the things that I said before, this Phil Spencer and Xbox in general, they had to put up or shut up. And they really needed to shut up too, because they talk too much. Well, they didn't shut up. They kept talking, and now there's a lot of confusion. And what they put up was not very good. So this generation, I'm kind of interested to see how Xbox does. And I'm sorry, I don't care how much of a value it is. Game Pass is not enough to make me want to buy an Xbox. So it's that simple as that. But anyway, we're going to stop there. If you like the video, give it a like. If you dislike it, that's fine too. I try to be, as impartial as I can be. I do have my biases, but hey, it's just my opinion. And I'm sure you have your own opinions. And I hope that you enjoyed this video and hope you check out the next ones. Till then, take care. See you later. Tune in next time for some more Reiwa Gaming Matt. Same Reiwa time, same Reiwa channel.